Study skills are the methods that can be applied in the process of organising and retaining new information when coming to assessments. These methods differ and require different study skills in order to be applied properly. For our assessment, we've decided to interview various students to see the different ways that they study and all the different study skills that they use. A visual learner is someone who prefers to visualize the ideas they are being given, and they like to see the relationships between these ideas through graphs and charts, etc. Visual learners also tend to remember what they see rather than what they hear, and they prefer to work alone. Auditory learners learn by hearing the information they need to know. They understand and remember things by the way that they sound. Often auditory learners find that reading something out loud helps them understand it much better.
Reading is a very important skill as it promotes understanding and concentration. Writing skill involves receiving notes and writing them in your own understanding.
Tactile and kinesthetic learners best absorb information by doing, experiencing, touching, and moving. Hands-on activities give them the greatest advantages, but their tendency towards movement is sometimes problematic, as they could struggle with sitting still and paying attention.
Definitely reading and writing and visual. I first copy or rewrite notes from a textbook or my work early on in the term, and I also like to see things in pictures and visually. It helps me remember things.
Kinetic.
I would like to believe that I'm a bit of a visual and auditory learner because I like pictures and all of this, but I also love hearing, music while I study, or if it's not music, it's the lecturer speaking. That's also a form of studying for me.
I use my time better, I believe. A lot of the techniques are similar, but now I've realized how I can narrow out what I need to learn and the essentials, opposed to just going over everything that is in the textbook.
I am more into what I'm doing now, so I actually sit down and work and want to work. So I make a way that makes me want to remember.
There's not much of a difference, but I think actually now that I think about it, it's when I studied at high school, it was very much about like making my notes look nice for when I read them in the future. But now, because there's quite a lot that we have to go through in a short amount of time, you literally just have to like do what works for you on a piece of paper or not on a piece of paper and just get through it instead of like making it look nice.
I don't think I have changed my study skills in any way. I just think I got more serious academically in university than back in the high school and primary school.
So there's generally my notes that I've written down from class, there's the slideshows, and there's the textbook, and I try find the common ground between all of them, or what comes up most frequently, and I generally narrow it down to that information. If it's only used in maybe only the textbook, it may not be important.
So for each subject that I do study, I have a little picture that will remind me of a certain section, and obviously it won't be like one picture for one sentence, it'll be like for a whole overview. So when a word will pop up, obviously after studying, I will think, it's the sun. Then the sun, all the things and the information starts coming through, and I have it already down.
I think I'd see how I work, how I do, or how I best learn under it, and then if it's hindering me or helping me, either way, I'll make a decision from that.
No, because I like to study the way I study.
I may or maybe not be open to learning a new study skill, because once I did try and learn or try to study using mind maps, and it did not go well. So I may or may not be open, but I am willing to try.
Visual learners should study using colours so that the ideas stand out more. They can also draw pictures to help them remember information. Mind maps and labeled diagrams also work very well for visual learners, along with flashcards and highlighters. Auditory learners should use rhymes and jingles, and it's also good for them to use tape recorders, and they can also read their notes out loud.
Suggestions for reading is to read actively, carefully, and critically. And also it's important that you check your new vocabulary. And for writing, you have to write constantly until you understand, write things over, and also take notes when you are in lectures.
Suggestions for kinesthetic learners when studying. They should create models, demonstrate a principle, practice a technique, study in short periods with frequent breaks, study with others, engage on hands-on activities, and study in a comfortable position, not necessarily sitting in a chair. It is important to remember that there is no right or wrong method when studying. Each style has advantages and disadvantages. Knowing your learning style is not meant to limit you, but to expand you by helping you work, learn, and live more efficiently.
As seen in the interviews, each individual has a growth mindset in the sense that one is open to a new study skills to see if it works, while others are not. But this is due to the study skill they each use being advantageous to their studies.
I found this course very interesting and very helpful because it encouraged me to explore what type of a learner I feel I am, and it also encouraged me to explore more in the different ways that I can study and the ways that will help me best in each subject. And it also just made me aware of the fact that for each subject I would study in different ways.
What I have learned from the interviews and the research on study skills is that you have to be open-minded and be keen to adapt to change. And this is because of the reason that each subject requires you to have a different study skill in order to learn it. An example would be maths. Maths, you have to be practical with it, and politics, you have to read through it and do your writings over and over to understand it.
I enjoyed the assignment as it broadened my perspective as to see how different people studied in different ways for the specific subjects that they take. It also was very interesting to find out from my own point of view what study skills I use throughout the subjects I take. So for example, for human kinetics and ergonomics, I would use a more kinesthetic approach, whereas for maths, I would use a more practical writing way, where I just practice all the examples and so on. Researching for the assignment was also extremely helpful in the sense that we got a better perspective on all the other study skills as well as suggestions. So, for instance, me where I study in two different ways for the different subjects I do, it was nice to see the different suggestions to help me improve the way I study.